Coming up is Ag Tech, Indiana's next big thing. There's lots of momentum in the space, including the first Forbes Ag Tech Summit in the Midwest, visiting Indianapolis. Beck's Hybrids President Scott Beck is here to weigh in. Plus, a popular event that seeks to change the way Hoosiers talk, think, and react to failure returns to Terre Haute. We'll preview FailFest Wabash Valley. And Car Auction Services says construction is on schedule on its $80 million global headquarters project in Carmel. We'll take you on a tour of this state-of-the-art campus and share plans to fill hundreds of new positions. Details on those stories and much more ahead on this edition of Inside Indiana Business.
Stand by for Top of Show with music full. Stand by D1 Sound, sponsored open with music. Stand by Camera 3 with Gary. We're out in 5, 4, 3, 2, dissolve, cue Gary.
Hello and welcome to Inside Indiana Business. I'm Gary Dick. What is the future of the $16 billion ag biosciences sector in Indiana? Can the state become a robust ecosystem for this growing innovation-based industry? Well, some 500 global ag leaders and entrepreneurs gathered for the first ever Forbes Ag Tech Summit in Indianapolis this week. Beck's Hybrids is a major player in the sector, the nation's largest family-owned seed company, and very much a company fueled by technology and innovation. Beck's president, Scott Beck, was on a panel at the Forbes Ag Tech Summit. He joins me now in studio with more. And as always, Scott, thanks for being on the program.
Thank you, Gary.
What does it say, this Ag Tech Summit put on by Forbes, a major national event for the last 4 years? It's been in California for the first time ever, taken out of California, put into the Midwest right here in Indiana. What does that say about the state?
It says a lot about the leadership here in Indiana from a number of different sectors, from government to education to business to startup companies. People are recognizing the assets that are in Indiana and that it is really a hub of innovation when it comes to agriculture and particularly ag bioscience.
Yeah. See, Steve Forbes made an appearance at the event. This was a chance to showcase technology and innovation in agriculture in Indiana. I know there was a big group that toured your complex up at Beck's as part of this event. Again, a chance to shine a light on what's here, right?
Absolutely. There were 10 different companies up there that showcased some of their latest innovations regarding imagery, sensing, testing of crops in season, and just using technology to help farmers, make better decisions.
Talk about technology and innovation. I think Beck's is a great example, and how that is such a big part of your company and has been for a long time, and has enabled you to grow far beyond Indiana.
Yeah, certainly, the innovation that got us started was back in the 1930s of hybrid seed. And so my grandfather and great-grandfather got their allotment from Purdue University and started with 6 acres. And that innovation of hybrid technology enabled farmers to go from 30 bushels an acre to today, with the use of other technologies, to the USDA says that farmers in the U.S. are going to average 180, so 6 times the yield in just about 80 years.
Talk about how if you use that example and you kind of expand it out onto so many of the other things going on in agriculture right now. It's a $16 billion industry estimated in Indiana. What's the potential for the state to really, pardon the pun, grow this thing into something really big in terms of jobs and investment?
There is a real focus there, and I think part of the work that Agronomos has done is identifying, where the assets are and where the gaps are. And I think we really have a gap in helping our younger people understand the connection between science, technology, engineering, and math and agriculture. When you think about the state's assets, 2/3 of what we do in Indiana is raising crops in the land that we have. So crop growing is like a factory. We're producing something. And so I had the opportunity to tour Subaru a few months ago, and many of the technologies they're using there to produce cars, we use the same types of things in agriculture, from imagery and sensors, robotics and automation. It's all happening in agriculture. And so we need, I guess, part of the effort of Agronovos and really all of us in Indiana agriculture is to make awareness of the assets and the opportunities for young people.
Yeah, AgriNovus, you mentioned the organization really supporting this. The Ag Biosciences has a lot of momentum behind it right now around the state. And you mentioned young people, and I sense you see that as a challenge or an opportunity in terms of growing the Ag Biosciences. Purdue President Mitch Daniels mentioned at this event that student startups have increased fivefold on the Purdue campus, and a third of those are ag related. So that intellectual property, firepower is out there. It needs to be harnessed.
It absolutely is. And with Purdue being a major agricultural educational institute, it's a great partnership with what Purdue is doing in the Foundry and the Anvil, and trying to get the technology and the discoveries out into commercial products.
As we wrap up, you see this as an initiative, as something that's real. In other words, the Ag Biosciences could be that next big thing for Indiana.
Absolutely. The passion is there with the people working, the leadership is there, and it's just a matter of getting all that connected into a lot of little sparks that sets off the fire. All
right, Scott Beck is president at Beck's Hybrids, one of the great growing companies in the state of Indiana. Scott, as always, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Gary.
All right. Well, still ahead, we wrap up our series Behind the Gates at Crane with a closer look at the installation's unique value, not only for the region, but the entire state. But first, Terre Haute bringing back a one-day event focused on celebrating failure as part of success. Launch Terre Haute Executive Director Shelley Klingerman will preview the third annual FailFest Wabash Valley. That's next. It's time now to go inside innovation, brought to you by DMI, mobilizing enterprises for the connected world. Well, failure is a topic that many people tend to shy away from, but it will be front and center at the third annual FailFest Wabash Valley in Terre Haute in the week ahead. Speakers include a pizzeria owner, a business professional who's never really had a real job, and a singer-songwriter and recording artist. Launch Terre Haute Executive Director Shelley Klingerman is here now with a look at this popular event and its impact. And Shelley, as always, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, the role of failure in success, it's gaining a lot of momentum. There's a big FailFest here in Indianapolis in central Indiana. And you got on board on this several years ago. This is the third time for the event. Why do an event like this?
I think everybody needs help overcoming that fear of failure. So the more you talk about it, the more you realize that it's just part of the process. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just something to do in a moment in time and move on. And we have a lot of young talent in our community with our universities. So we're really trying to make an impression on them to kind of go for it and go for it while you're there. And we really want them to stay in our community.
I've been very fortunate to have been a part in speaking at this event for the last couple of years. It's a great event. And really it is. You're using people who've been there, done that. They're successful, but they had failures. And they really put that on kind of front and center, right?
Right, and it's funny because the speakers who are the most vulnerable get the highest marks. So people really like to make that connection. Like if they got past it, I can get past it.
Yeah. You are the executive director of Launch Terre Haute, which is an organization, co-working space that really seeks to grow companies in the community. Talk about Launch and how you've grown over the last several years.
Yeah, we opened our doors about 3 years ago. Our membership, we've had about 300 members go through. Because we are a college town, those members tend to be a little bit transient, which is great because then they always come back and come in and update us on what they're doing. But we have a lot of interesting things kind of percolating in there. One being an AI company, which shows a lot of promise, and they're kind of really perched for growth. We have some of our entrepreneurs who have started the food truck as one of our success stories. They're going on now and working on some new things. One is an HR app. And now we're getting a lot of people that are realizing the market that Terre Haute offers to the college students. And so they're looking at a lot of services to really cater to that college population.
Yeah, we'll talk about that because it is a really target-rich environment when we talk about college students. Indiana State, Rose-Hulman, and St. Mary's, Ivy Tech, WGU. You've got a lot of colleges right there in your own backyard. And you started a thing called the Community Innovation Challenge, which really targets those young people.
Yeah, so we're really trying to make the connection between our college students students and our local businesses. And those connections are what really maybe root them in our community. So we are picking and we're partnering with a local business, and we are inviting all the colleges to bring teams and brainstorm around whether it's a challenge, an issue, a problem that that business is facing, and really get the voice of the audience that we're trying to keep and connect with. So we had our first one this week. It turned out really well. The business owner, it gives them an opportunity to get perspective that they would never have. If you want to know an answer, ask the person you're trying to connect with.
Very quickly, you also you've got a high school meetup, so you're really going even younger to connect with people in the community. Yeah,
and that's coming from our business owners' feedback too, who really need to connect with those high school students. It's important too for our community, for those students to make the decision to stay in our community. But in order to do that, you need to know what your options are and what your career paths are and what are the expectations and the qualifications that are going to be required. So we are really reaching out and we're pulling them into our space very intentionally to get them out of their environment so that we can kind of expose them to a new environment and leverage our business partners.
FailFest, Wabash Valley, October 3. For tickets, you can go to failfest.us.
Correct.
And it's at the Indiana Theater, going to be a great event. Shelley Klingerman, thanks very much.
Thank you.
All right. Well, here's what's on tap now in tech news, served up by Sun King. India-based Infosys and Purdue University are providing more details on one aspect of a partnership announced more than a year ago. The university says it will provide intensive cybersecurity training for up to 2,000 Infosys employees throughout the world. The U.S. Department of Defense has awarded nearly $2 million to Indiana University's Center for Applied Cybersecurity Research and the Crane Naval Surface Warfare Center. The funding will allow those two organizations to continue work on their Principles-Based Assessment for Cybersecurity Toolkit, or PACT. Officials in Shelby County hope a new agreement will boost the availability of high-speed internet service. The Shelby County Fiber Optic Board has signed a deal with Greenfield-based Ninestar Connect to expand fiber access throughout the county. And for Tech News 24/7, be sure to check out InsideIndianaBusiness.com. Still ahead, as construction continues on Car Auction Services' new $80 million global headquarters in Carmel, the company ramping up hiring efforts. But next, we conclude our four-part Behind the Gates at Crane series with a look at how the Joint Navy-Army installation provides a unique value to Indiana. Here's what's making news now around Indiana, brought to you by your Indiana Fever. The University of Notre Dame says its endowment pool ended the fiscal year in June with $13.1 billion. That's up from $11.8 billion the previous year. Chief Investment Officer Scott Malpas adds the pool saw a slight decrease in performance with a 12.2% return for the year. As part of an economic development mission to Italy, Indiana has opened a business development office in Milan. During the three-day trip, members of the delegation also met with businesses in Italy's Motor Valley to promote collaboration with the state's automotive manufacturing and motorsports industries. Some 4,000 RV dealers visited Elkhart this week. The annual Elkhart RV Dealer Open House, billed as the largest show of its kind in the world. Some 30 manufacturers showcased their products at events in their own facilities or elsewhere throughout the region. And the Indiana Chamber of Commerce has named Purdue University President Mitch Daniels its 2018 Business Leader of the Year. The Chamber citing achievements including 7 years of frozen tuition and growth of the Discovery Park District at Purdue. Well, our month-long Behind the Gates at Crane series wraps up this week with a look at the installation's unique value. Senior leadership from both the Navy and Army provide an overview of the base's history, heritage, and strong ties to southern Indiana. It has been part of the southwest Indiana landscape since the early 1940s, covering more than 60,000 acres, and today employing more than 5,000 Hoosiers. But Naval Support Activity Crane remains one of Indiana's best-kept secrets.
We have 3 mission areas. Most of it's technical. In fact, about 2/3 of my workforce is technical in nature. But we have these 3 mission areas. We support strategic deterrence mission, electronic warfare, and what we call expeditionary warfare. In those 3 areas, we do research, development, testing, and evaluation of the warfare systems that we deploy mostly to the Navy and Marine Corps warfighters out in the field. And our support that we provide to them is from before a system is born to its eventual, I'll call it death and disposal. And even in particular at the end of life for these systems, there's a lot of technical work that goes into extending these systems. Sometimes we have to make them last 50 years.
When you talk about the R&D and the Federal Labs piece of this and the research and the innovation that goes on here, give people an idea of some of the cool things that are going on kind of behind the scenes here.
So we do quite a bit of work. I mentioned our strategic deterrence work. So that encompasses the Trident missile system, Ohio-class submarines. We do quite a bit of work on both the submarine and in the missile systems. Also, if you take a look at electronic warfare, we support both aviation, shipboard, and undersea assets in that area in varying capabilities, whether it's radars or signal detection and other areas. And then with the Marine Corps and the Special Operation Forces, we're the center of engineering for all Navy small arms, 50 caliber and smaller. So there's really quite a bit of direct influence in those areas. And also, even if you can cross all three of those areas together in some instances, that's even a more unique capability that we have in supporting our warfighters.
Crane is home to the world's third largest naval installation, but there is also an Army presence here. In fact, Crane is the second largest Army ammunition depot in the world.
The mission for Crane Army is to mostly ship, receive, and store ammunition and make sure that the ammunition is safe and that it's ready whenever the warfighter needs that ammunition. We also do production operations and a lot of demilitarization work because as a large storage facility, we maintain stocks that eventually go out of service or the weapon system is no longer needed, and so we demilitarize that ammunition as well.
Talk to the extent that you can about the scope of the shipping, the logistics, all the things that goes on here on a daily basis.
We ship around 30-some trucks a day. That's normally around probably a 5-year average of 32,000 short tons of ammunition that we ship annually. And then we also receive about another 25,000 short tons of ammunition. And then as well, we demilitarize somewhere around 7,000 short tons a year as well.
For all of its size, cutting-edge technology, and enormous economic impact, it is the collaboration between Navy and Army that some suggest is Crane's true unique value.
Well, coming up next, KAR Auction Services' new global headquarters is expected to create hundreds of new jobs over the next 2 years. We'll explain what positions need to be filled and take you inside the $80 million state-of-the-art campus. Well, 1 year ago, Carmel-based KAR Auction Services unveiled plans to invest $80 million in a new global headquarters and add some 400 jobs. This week, the vehicle remarketer and technology provider provided a hard hat tour to update progress on the state-of-the-art project and hiring plans. Our Mary Rachel Redmond was there.
Thanks, Gary. Officials from KAR Auction Services tell me construction on the company's new 250,000 square foot global headquarters is right on schedule.
The expected move-in date is sometime over the summer of 2019. So I would say we're probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 months from moving in.
And KAR really doesn't have to move all too far from its current headquarters, located just 2 miles from its new 13-acre Carmel campus. So what's the motivation behind the move?
It's very important to us to really have a facility that's going to attract this young talent. We've got this open, bright, airy feeling. The actual dimensions of the building are narrower, so no one is that far away from the outside. Speaking of the outside, we're going to have a lot of nice amenities in our outdoor space, a big lawn area, outdoor seating, outdoor meeting areas, and a terrace. We've really tried to think, what are younger people looking for?
I think the building is a great influence on recruitment. As you probably are well aware, we're in a very competitive market for talent, especially IT talent, And I think the building makes a difference in terms of attracting talent. Just our location, where we're located right here on 31. As I like to say, we're only about a 5-iron from 465. We got lots of amenities right close around us.
And as CAR continues to grow, so do the company's workforce needs.
There's a lot of jobs we're going to bring to Central Indiana. Many of those jobs are IT jobs, but there's a lot of other positions as well within a number of companies that will headquarter here. A number of different jobs that you would expect with the global headquarters that will not only service us here in North America, but will be the back office for all of our operations worldwide. And I think as you walk around this building when completed, you will see that we've incorporated a lot of technology, a lot of innovation, and a lot of transformation that is really leading us into the next chapter of our growth.
Mary Rachel Redman, Inside Indiana Business.
Coming up, researchers at Purdue University have developed a unique approach that allows experienced surgeons and physicians to help less experienced doctors in war zones to perform complicated procedures. Kylie Valletta will be here in the Business of Health. Stay with us.
Stand by D1 Sound, sponsored open with music. Stand by camera 3 with Gary. We're out in 5, 4,
3 seconds.
2, dissolve, cue Gary.
It's time now for the Business of Health, brought to you by Hendricks Regional Health. Well, a Purdue University researcher is taking the power of augmented reality to the battlefield. Business of Health reporter Kylie Valletta tells us how the project could save lives. Kylie.
Thank you, Gary. When soldiers are seriously wounded in battle and their injuries are beyond military medics' expertise, they often need to be airlifted or transported to the closest medical facility, typically taking several hours. Dr. Juan Vox is an associate professor in the School of Industrial Engineering at Purdue. He joins me now to tell us about his technology that will help treat soldiers immediately after they're injured. Welcome to the show.
Welcome. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for being here. The project is called STAR, System for Telementoring with Augmented Reality. So it involves a mentor, say a surgeon in a remote location, and the medic in the field. And then tell us how your technology takes over from there.
So the idea is to have experts that convey expertise, knowledge to the medic. That could be in a rural setting or in the battlefield. And what is going on is basically medics wear these see-through displays, these glasses with cameras that capture the views of the casualties. And those views are sent directly to the expert, to surgeon at the say a trauma hospital like the one in Indianapolis, IU School of Medicine. The experts look at these images in a large interaction table. They discuss the cases, they perform annotations, they move their hands, they put surgical instruments, virtual instruments, real instruments. Those instruments and annotations are sent back to the medic, and the medic can see these virtual instruments combined with the reality, with the view of the patient at the same time, and can operate following the instructions that he's receiving from the experts.
And this is all, they can communicate, talk back and forth, and this is all live, real time.
This is all working in real time. We try even communication from Indianapolis with Virginia, with Norfolk naval bases, and the communication worked great.
And beyond the military application, you're also working with Purdue to commercialize the technology, perhaps for rural application.
Right. In rural application, there's a serious need for this type of technology because oftentimes they don't have the surgical expertise required given a case that requires some type of procedure. And they need to bring this expertise, and the best way to do that is remotely. So as opposed to previous attempts where the communication was only audio through speech, we're actually bringing images and annotations and videos that experts can in real time use to interact with the medics, with clinicians, with whoever is actually providing the care.
And also disaster relief.
Disaster relief is very important because in those situations you may need urgent assistance, and sometimes the first responders are the people arriving to the place and required to give treatment immediately. Sometimes the procedures could be pretty simple, like cracks, opening the airways for the patient to breathe. But without the required knowledge and training and instructions, those patients may not remain alive. So we have this ability of providing real-time assistance through video, through instructions and verbal commands to the location, and provide assistance in this way.
Well, it's a fascinating technology, and I certainly hope that it's in the field soon. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Gary, back to you.
All right, Kylie, thank you. Well, the Bureau of Labor Statistics estimates the U.S. will need to hire more than 2 million new healthcare workers by 2026, including 1 million nurses. Carmel-based Orbis Education partners with colleges and universities, healthcare systems to help meet healthcare staffing demand. Founder Dan Briggs and Chief Product Officer Scott McCormick are here now to explain how the model works in this week's Eye on Education segment. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having us, Gary.
Dan, I'll start with you. The company incorporated in 2003 and really got going commercially in 2010. Talk about the whole idea behind Orbis Education.
Sure. I've spent the majority of my career in healthcare, and what we were really looking at is this continual shortage of healthcare employees. And really at the inception, we looked at nursing. At that time, the shortage was 800,000. So over 10 years, even though we've been in business, the shortage keeps getting worse. It's really a breakage in supply and demand. The healthcare systems are needing more because we're aging as a population. In addition, the amount of nurses themselves are aging with us. Secondly, people are living longer. And as they live longer, they need more healthcare employees. So we're trying to figure out how do we help schools expand that reach.
So schools, healthcare systems, those are some of your big clients. Scott, talk about how the model works, how operationally Orbis works.
Well, we built the organization on quality. We assumed that quality would be the center of our operation, so that we built all process around that. If we produce a quality product for our universities, we work with them to really provide services that they don't internally have to help educate more students. So those services being marketing, recruiting, helping them put their curriculum into an online or a hybrid format, helping them find clinical placements in the healthcare world.
So is it to provide a delivery system for the organizations, or what specifically do you provide to them?
Specifically, we'll actually do student marketing. We will do the student recruiting. We have an instructional design and e-learning team that will work with their faculty one-on-one to help provide the online environment that students will interact and learn about healthcare education.
And go a little deeper. I mentioned those numbers off the top, but those are staggering numbers. That's a good thing for your business. I mean, you've got a lot of demand out there. As we were talking off camera, you talked about the unique aspect or element of your business where you're really helping to fill a void, right?
Yeah, so one of the things we do is we really focus on the healthcare systems, and we talk to them about where are their needs, not just today, where are they going. So one of the things we've done is hospitals, health systems, clinics, all need these people to be in there working on a day-to-day. What we do is we really talk to them and say, okay, how can we change this model a little bit? So with Scott's team, what they've really done is we've removed the classroom. So it's very traditional in a standpoint. Our students still have to spend a lot of time with patients. The hospitals, the healthcare systems, they have those patients sitting there. What we also have done is expand those hours. So we're no longer talking about everything has to be done in that 8 to 5 period of time. We can go evenings, we can go weekends, because hospitals are 24/7 operations. So what we've done is expanded the capacity of training these individuals or educating them in a hospital system, as well as now we've given the student the ability to say, I can now accelerate this because most of our programs are only 14 months long. So we're taking 2 years of college and condensing it. So it really allows more people access.
And a good example, you partner with universities and systems around the country, but Marian University here in Indianapolis and I think St. V's. Talk about how that partnership works.
Sure, so that partnership is one of our older ones. We actually started that partnership at the end of 2009. The way that partnership works is all of our students are being educated at Marian University. They're doing their theory work in an online component that Scott's team has developed. They do all of their clinical practicum and all of their clinical experiences done at St. Vincent's. At the time, what we've worked with is both Marian and St. Vincent's to create a very unique partnership, which is called Marian University for St. Vincent Health. That partnership has produced in excess of 1,000 new nurses for them over the last 10 years.
Very quickly, we want to talk, you're a success story, this company. Talk about the number of jobs that you have grown. You've become a substantial company.
Yeah, so you're looking at when we started the company, Scott, sitting to my right, was employee number 1. We now have over 300 employees. Wow. We've just expanded our corporate office in Carmel. So we've also increased that. And the goal here is to continue to grow the organization because as you look at those numbers, there's no end in sight.
Yep, very good. Orbis Education continues to grow, and Dan Briggs is the founder of the company, Scott McCormick, Chief Product Officer as well. Thank you both for being on the show.
Thank you.
All right. Well, still ahead, leadership from KSM Location Advisors are here to look at how advances in data analytics are making the site selection process, well, perhaps a bit more effective. But first, Indiana Pacers head coach Nate McMillan recently signed a multi-year contract extension and says he's focused on the future for the blue and gold. Bill Benner sits down with the coach to talk about the season ahead and his journey from North Carolina to Indiana. Well, Nate McMillan begins his 3rd season as head coach of the Indiana Pacers with both a new contract extension and rising expectations. Inside Indiana Business sports reporter Bill Benner sat down with the coach this week as the Pacers began training camp. And Bill, as always, thank you. And by full disclosure, Bill is employed by the Pacers Foundation. But Bill, as you did this interview, I know one thing on your mind, the Pacers, it's going to be a little tougher for the team to sneak up on people this year.
Yeah, last year was so unexpected. Nobody knew how the trade was going to work out. This year, certainly not the case. Yeah, even as the Pacers surpassed everyone's predictions last year with a 48-win regular season before pushing Cleveland to the brink in the playoffs, McMillan received scant mention as coach in the Coach of the Year balloting. But he's looking ahead, not behind, as the Pacers look to ride rising star Victor Oladipo into becoming an Eastern Conference contender. And here's the interview. How does the mental approach change now that people know who the Indiana Pacers are?
Well, we're not going to be afraid of that, and we're not going to, really listen to the outside noise. We didn't listen to it last year when people said that we was at the bottom of the barrel, and now all of a sudden, everybody's got us winning it. It's going to require us to come in and work. Again, this is a new year. This is a new journey, and we're going to have to rebuild this all over again. We do have some changes from last season, so it's not the same team that we have last year.
And the tone setter for that has been Victor Oladipo.
He was hungry to prove, to a lot of people and to himself that he could play this game, and he could play this game at a high level. And all season long, he came in very confident. He worked on his game extremely hard during the off season, came in and got off to a good start, and he just rode that confidence. He continued to grow and get better and improve, and ended up having an all-star season.
Just moving into the St. Vincent Center, what does having that kind of facility mean for your coaching staff, your training staff? I mean, that's first class.
I've been to many of the facilities around the NBA because we have the opportunity to practice there. We have to be one of the top 5 best facilities. And, the St. Vincent Center has become one of the resources for our players that can help them improve. The place is, whatever you need is there. Whatever you need is there. We were in Bankers Life for many years, and we had 1 floor and, a small weight room and small jacuzzi and all of that. Now we have 2 floors. All of our offices are in the building, bigger weight room, bigger jacuzzi. I mean, it's a recruiting tool.
Yeah.
It's become a recruiting tool. Our free agents, we certainly brought those guys in to allow them to see that before they made their decision.
North Carolina didn't get recruited by the North Carolina State Wolfpack, went to Chowan Junior College, blossomed there. Then you got to play, then they noticed. Your mom was an employee at North Carolina State, and then you got noticed and you went and played 2 years for the Wolfpack under Jim Valvano.
My high school team, I had some good players on that team, and a lot of universities was looking at those guys, and nobody was paying attention to Nate McMillan, except for this junior college called Chowan down in Murfreesboro, North Carolina. And you know, Coach Bob Burke, who was coaching there, really, it was the best decision for me. And you know, things just worked out. It was a great junior college. We went to the Final Four. When I was there, I was able to become an All-American, and then NC State comes knocking at my door, and Coach Valvano screamed at his coaching staff because they didn't recruit me in high school, and the fact that my mother was working over at the university, they knew nothing about me. But when they did come a-calling, I was excited because I lived 5 minutes from the university, had the opportunity to play for NC State and play in the ACC, which at that time was you know, all the kids, it was their dream to play in the ACC.
When you were a kid growing up in Raleigh, North Carolina, did you ever allow yourself to dream that someday you'd have one of the 30 most coveted jobs in professional basketball?
No, it wasn't a dream of mine to play in the NBA, certainly not to coach in the NBA, because you know, from my community, there was nobody who had done that. You know, as I mentioned, the dream for me was to play in the ACC. Yeah. And, you know, there were, you know, kids in the community that played in the ACC. So that was my MBA, to have this opportunity to spend over 30 years in the NBA and have this opportunity to, you know, here I am coaching the Indiana Pacers. I still pinch myself.
All right, Bill, great report. Coach mentioned it in the interview. You know, it's largely the same team, but there's definitely an infusion of some new talent that could change the dynamic maybe a little.
Oh, absolutely, and you know, it is a dynamic setting now. Tyreek Evans coming in from Memphis, Kyle O'Quinn from the Knicks, Doug McDermott, who I think will really help him with the outside shooting, and then the new point guard Aaron Holiday in a backup role. So. Same old teams. Yep. Victor kind of setting the tone, but a new team in a lot of respects.
And we'll get it started in a few weeks.
You got it.
Thanks very much,
Thanks,
Bill.
Gary.
Well, coming up in the second of our 4-part Eye on Economic Development series, taking a deeper dive into site selection, leadership from KSM Location Advisors will look at how advances in data analytics are making the site selection process more effective. There they are in the Inside Indiana Business Social Media Lounge. They'll join me in studio next. Well, site selection is the process of examining multiple options and assessing their relative advantages and disadvantages. Our monthly Eye on Economic Development segment continues this week with part 2 of our series, taking a deeper dive into site selection. And we look at how advances in data analytics are really making the site selection process more effective and more efficient. I'm pleased to be joined by national site selection firm KSM Location Advisors CEO Tim Cook and President Katie Culp, and welcome, as always, to the program. Data analytics. I mean, it seems like analytics permeating everything. You see it in sports, in basketball, and baseball, and for all the everywhere. Analytics. How is it really changing, Katie, the site selection process?
It has changed so dramatically from when I entered the business 20 years ago. I mean, you used to have these 100-page RFIs that would go out to economic development organizations, and you would spend 2 weeks filling them out, and then consultants would get the answers and compile them, and the whole process took months, and you know, they earned their weight in paper. And now, I mean, don't you think it goes by probably within a couple? I mean, you could get all of that done in a week, maybe.
So a lot more efficient, more quickly, and maybe gives you a more apples to apples comparison when more up-to-date, valid data.
Yeah, you've got more accurate information, and there's an immediacy to it now where everybody has this information at their fingertips, not just Katie and me, but the companies themselves. And so they bring some knowledge to that decision-making process where before they really tried to outsource it to the consultants.
Yeah, give us some examples, because many people out there not in the business certainly may have no idea. Right. They hear about these big deals. They hear about the Amazons, which would be a deal on steroids, but they hear about these deals but have no idea the amount of data and the kinds of things these companies want and these site selection people want?
Yeah, I mean, it is incredibly complex, and the speed of data allows us to do a very even-keeled sort of look at it all. But you know, you've got, whether it's a corporate or division headquarters, a call center, a manufacturing facility, they typically have a team together of, you know, ops people, the CFO, and kind of an executive team. And we pour through so much data. There's the basic demographic stuff, you know, about workforce and what have you, but then the trends in unemployment, the trends in occupational codes, and where the growth is. For example, you might look at two cities, say Indianapolis and Cincinnati, and they might not look that different from one another, but when you drill down into where the labor force has the skills, they may be very, very different solutions for certain types of companies.
And it will change based on the industry. Like if it's a retailer, they are looking at such precise data on customer patterns and that types of thing. They could be looking at two sites that are part of the same intersection. One site's a perfect fit and the other site doesn't work at all for whatever reason. So you get that kind of precision now just based on the data that's available.
Lots of change, analytics among them, but some things have not changed in the site selection process, right?
Yeah, the qualitative piece, I mean, at the end of the day, you have all this data, it's great. You can take a very clinical approach to it, but at the end of the day, it's human beings that are making these decisions. It's not computers, and that part is always going to be part of the process.
And there's so much data available that you can almost get paralysis by analysis,
And
right?
I had that down as a question. I wondered if that is part of the deal now.
It is. There's so much. It's like, okay, how do I make a good decision, especially for our clients whose careers are tied to the success or failure of a location? And so it's helping them sift through it and to weigh in things like employer interviews and a lot of the anecdotal stuff that informs them.
Yeah, like a lot of times they'll come to Katie and say, we're overwhelmed, we don't know what decision to make. One issue that could come up is they're on a tight time frame. What is it going to be like to work through that local government to get the zoning, to get the entitlements, all of that? And if that's going to take 3 to 6 months and you don't have 3 to 6 months, that could take that city off the list where otherwise they look like the perfect fit.
And Katie, I think you mentioned before we started taping that when you look at you know, some of the things that companies are looking for in an environment where the employment is so tight.
Yes.
You know, the unemployment situation at historic lows, that makes it challenging.
Yeah, I mean, the most popular locations do have pretty tight labor markets, and so what's a real estate executive, you know, for a company to do saying 3.8 versus 3.7% unemployment? That doesn't really tell you the whole story. There are a lot of nuances and more granular data that they need that we need to arm them with to make a good decision.
As you look at all these changes and how data analytics are driving change in the way you do business, have these changes and advances plateaued? Have they kind of topped out? Or do you think we'll continue to see evolution and change in the site selection process?
Yeah, I think data is just going to become more readily available, and I think the expectations on what it can do to help make decisions has become greater. So I think the focus is only going to become more so.
But it does seem to keep speeding up all the time, so I guess less sleep for anyone in our business.
Yeah, just, you know, from local economic development organizations, let's say, how does that change the dynamic for them? Some, especially maybe in smaller areas, it's an expense. I mean, data analytics and getting that data has got to have an expense to it. Does it put them in a challenging position?
I think it is really hard for some of these smaller organizations that a lot of times are on a list or cut from a list without even knowing it. And so they obviously don't have the same resources to promote some of their data that some of the larger organizations do.
And those organizations that can provide that on a turnkey basis, they're in a better position to qualify to get some of those projects.
Right. Yes. Response speed actually has sometimes as much to do as what their product is.
Absolutely.
Great behind the scenes look at the site selection process. Next month in part 3, we'll take a look at issues like quality of space and the impact on the site selection process. We'll look forward to that. Tim Cook, Katie Culp, thanks very much.
Thanks Gary.
Talk to you soon. In part 3 next month, once again, we'll dive deeper into the softer issues like quality of space and the impact on the site selection process. That'll be next month in part 3. And I'll be right back after this. Coming up next week, a new report on the Regional Cities Initiative. Have live, work, play communities around the state been successful at retaining and attracting talent? Thanks for joining us this week. I'm Gary Dick. Go out and make it a successful week.
Inside Indiana Business with Gary Dick is a production of Grow Indiana Media Ventures with support from WFYI Productions.